My dear Masala podcast fans, I've written a book called Bad Daughter. You surprised by the title? I think not. I've never shared such deeply personal things before. I talk about growing up in poverty. I talk about my father's violence, my mother's murder. I talk about how I turned my pain into power, navigating mental health, sexuality, spirituality, and patriarchy. Bad Daughter is my story of going from Mumbai's slums to New York's billboards. But it's your story too. What's the message of this book? It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what happened to you. You still get to have the life that you want. If you're looking for a book to move you and inspire you to change your life, type in Bad Daughter by Sangeeta Pillai on Amazon or go to my website, baddaughter.co.uk.
I think I thought of myself as more American, but I think I also thought of the two lives. Like as I grew up, because my kind of school life was so compartmentalized from my life within the South Asian community, it did feel like kind of two identities. And I think comedy ended up being more in the Western identity. So it felt harder to blend the two after the fact. And I also think I was maybe more protective of my South Asian identity, where I felt like more wary about misstepping. So it felt a little bit more maybe unsafe to do jokes about that when I didn't feel like maybe my place in that community felt as assured.
Besharam, Badtameez, Chi Chi, Gandhi, Jalhata, Toba Toba, Oho, Bad Beti.
I'm Sangeeta Pillai, and this is the Masala podcast. This multi-award-winning feminist podcast for and by South Asian women is all about cultural taboos, from sex, sexuality, mental health, menopause, to nipple hair, and more. This season is a US special, and it took me by surprise. You see, I interviewed these incredible South Asian American women. I expected to hear some angst around identity and belonging. Instead, they told me how comfortable they were with both their South Asian and American identity. I confess, this is not the podcast season I set out to record. It's so much more powerful. I had the most thought-provoking chat with Aparna Nancherla. She's an LA-based comedian, actor, and writer who performs all over the US and worldwide. Her TV stand-up appearances include Netflix's The Standups, HBO's Two Dope Queens, and Comedy Central's The Half Hour. Aparna was also a series regular on Comedy Central's Corporate and appeared many times on HBO's Crashing. She's also made late-night appearances on The Late Late Show with James Corden and Late Night with Stephen Colbert. Aparna's got a book of personal essays coming out called Unreliable Narrator, which I'm really looking forward to reading because I love Aparna's gentle style of comedy.
I was pretty shy, and I think my mom was often worried, that I was like too timid for the world and that like people would take advantage of me, or I just like couldn't stand up for myself. So I think I started a lot of my younger life as kind of an observer, like kind of taking in everyone else and maybe not sure what my place was, and maybe not just as a South Asian person, but I think just as a person in general, I sometimes didn't know how I fit in socially with, even in like majority South Asian environments. Like I just felt like maybe quieter than the person next to me and not sure how to conduct myself. And I think also I had a lot of anxiety at that age. So I wasn't sure, if that was something everyone experienced or just something I had to kind of navigate on my own. I don't think I had a word for it for many years. So it was just kind of informing a lot of that early childhood. And yeah.
Did you have any friends? Did you have many friends in the school that you were in or the neighborhood that you lived in?
Yeah, like my sibling and I definitely were friends with like the neighborhood kids. And then I had friends in school, but I think it was very kind of compartmentalized where maybe I wouldn't see my school friends outside of that environment. And like I would see neighborhood friends in the neighborhood, but it wasn't, I think socializing outside the family wasn't necessarily like a priority or like something my parents were seeking out other than maybe like cultural events or like community events that were more South Asian focused.
I realized that growing up in India meant that I was always part of South Asian culture and communities. It's only now, when I live in the West, that I realize I didn't need to question my cultural identity like a lot of folks who grew up outside the homeland, so to speak. Being brown and Indian, like everyone else on the street, meant I could take my Indianness for granted. I ate mostly the same Indian food like all my neighbors. Except maybe we made a lot more fish curries from Kerala. I wore the same sort of clothes as my other little friends, usually midi dresses in crumpled printed cotton or pinafores in bleached white. Our skin turned the exact same shade of burnt brown from playing outside in the sun. Of course, as I grew up, I questioned a lot of things as a young woman. But my Indianness wasn't one of them. And for that, I am grateful.
So let's talk about comedy. When was the first time you found comedy or comedy found you?
Yeah, I think I was always attracted to kind of silliness and goofiness. And my mom definitely has a playfulness about her that I think, sometimes she would go into that gear and then sometimes she would be more serious. But I think it was always like, it felt like something was lighter or more possible when we were in that kind of sillier, goofier mode. And I think I observed like, class clowns and like people who were more immediately like funny in their environment. And I was kind of like, I want to do something like that, but I didn't know what my own entry point into it would be. And then so I sort of just started taking in more comedy as I got older. And, this was before YouTube and like the internet. So there wasn't quite the accessibility that there is now of, having a career or pursuing something in that field. So I think the first time I tried it, my friend and I went to like a stand-up comedy open mic over the summer when I was home from college. And I think he was definitely interested in stand-up and he was like, I think I'm going to try it. So we both kind of made a promise to each other that we'd both try it one time before the summer was up. And so I think that was the first time I ever went up, was maybe on my 20th birthday, I believe it was. But I think it helped to have kind of that agreement with someone else, because otherwise I think I would have maybe talked myself out of it. And I just, prepared some basic material about like what my life was like around then. And I was living at home with my parents and just had some summer jobs. So I just kind of did some jokes around that. And it went better than I thought. Like I thought it was just going to go horribly. And then I would be like, well, I tried that and now I'm moving on. But it went well enough that I think I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe this is something that I could keep exploring and like see where it goes. But after that, I tried it maybe like a handful of times in college, like just at student events, but I really didn't start pursuing it until after I graduated and moved back home. So it was kind of like I tried it and then essentially took 4 years to be like, well, maybe let's try it again.
What was the reaction of the family? Did you ever have a conversation saying, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a comedian?
I don't think I officially had that talk with them. It was more even for me, something that the more I did it, the more I was like, I guess this is something I'm pursuing actively. I think I've always kind of approached things in my life with this kind of tentative nature. So I'm always like wary to put a label on it too soon. So I think like it was way after the fact that I even called myself a comedian. And I think the first time I really had to negotiate with them about it was when I had been, because I stayed in DC for like 4 to 5 years. And then decided to move to Los Angeles to kind of pursue it more seriously. And I think that was the first time they really felt like I was making a statement of like, okay, I want to actually upend my life and make this my job. And I think, like most parents, they were worried about my financial security, but they never discouraged me in the sense of like, don't do this, it's a bad idea. It was more just like, but also, why don't you go to grad school while you do this? And I was like, I don't think that's what I want to do. And yeah, for whatever reason, they've been very open-minded about, I think, my choices.
That's wonderful because
Yeah.
most South Asian parents, as we know, that's, unless you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer,
Yeah,
it's
of
quite
course.
tricky, right? So I guess
Yeah.
that's really, really
And
good.
they had encouraged me early on to like, yeah, they were like, are you sure you don't want to go into medicine? Like, are you sure you don't want to get more degrees? But yeah, I think I've always in my own kind of quiet way, like been pretty stubborn about like the way I want to go.
What was it like, though, as a young brown woman trying to break into comedy and make it into comedy? Was it difficult? Was it easy?
Again, I think it helped being in like a diverse area that it wasn't like so unexpected for me to try this. I definitely wasn't one of like several women of color doing comedy, but there were like at least a handful of other women. And I knew there had been like a South Asian woman who had done comedy in the area maybe a couple years previously and then lived in New York at the time. So I think there were enough examples for me that I didn't feel like maybe like, oh, this is something no one like me has ever done before. But I do think there were ways also that maybe helped me that I didn't even realize at the time. Like my material was very much in the everyday and the mundane and kind of the trivialness of life. And I think sometimes women and comedians who are people of color get kind of shoehorned into maybe doing a lot of identity-based material. And I kind of didn't go that route when I started, not reason other than it just wasn't like what inspired me to write about. And I think sometimes I would get praised for that just because people would be like, oh, you're kind of doing something different than like other people like you have done before. And I think it was a little bit conflicting to hear that, because in some ways you don't want to be like the exception that's like for reasons of you're just erasing your identity completely. But I think I was so new at the time, I sort of was like, oh, I guess this is the right way or something. Like I didn't quite know what to make of it at the time.
What was your identity? Like, what did you think of yourself as? American, South Asian, somewhere in the middle? What?
Yeah, I think I thought of myself as more American, but I think I also thought of the two lives. Like as I grew up, because my kind of school life was so compartmentalized from my life within the South Asian community, it did feel like kind of two identities. And I think comedy ended up being more in the Western identity. So it felt harder to blend the two after the fact. And I also think I was maybe more protective of my South Asian identity, where I felt like more wary about misstepping. So it felt a little bit more maybe unsafe to do jokes about that when I didn't feel like maybe my place in that community felt as assured.
It's so common, this double identity thing. Like every guest I've ever spoken to kind of talks about trying to balance these two worlds.
Right.
This kind of Western world and this kind of South Asian world. And some almost at home, I'm like wearing a salwar kameez and eating samosas, and outside I'm I don't know, whatever, eating burgers and whatever the equivalent. But it is almost feels like it's how we survive. We build these two worlds and we kind of exist within these two worlds, and they don't necessarily meet a lot of times.
Yeah. I mean, I remember distinctly, like I took classical dance growing up, and I remember there was like a Lunar New Year celebration at my high school, and my sibling and I performed one of our dances at the celebration. And I just remember like there was a sound guy who was maybe like a white kid, and I think I saw him doing something that seemed like he was making fun of us. And I just like, it sort of just reiterated my feeling of like why it felt better to keep them separate, where I was just like, you don't understand like what this is or what this means to me. And it feels like not worth it to try to explain it to you.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, but I understand. It's like you're so protective of this part of yourself
Yeah.
that if other people don't see it or make fun of it, which is really hurtful, isn't it? So you'd rather keep it
Yeah.
private. Oh, I completely get it. So Aparna, you talk a lot about mental health in your comedy, right? Why is this important to you?
I think, I mean, it came about kind of unintentionally. I was struggling with, I think, a low point with depression at the time. And maybe my anxiety around performing had gotten kind of unmanageable. And I think I started writing about it really from a place of being at a loss of like how to move forward. And I didn't really write about it with the thought that like, oh, and now I can turn this into material and that will like fix it for me, but more just like I don't know what else to do. I'm kind of in this stuck place, and my usual thing is to create something, so let me just like write about it. I think when I first tried it on stage, I really wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, but I think people responded to it in a way that kind of surprised me. And I didn't even kind of think, as you do it when you embody an identity, I didn't think of myself of like, oh, like a woman of color talking about mental health. Like that's kind of unusual. Like I never thought of it that way. I think my point of view has always been very much from the inside out. So it's sort of just like, well, this is what's going on in my head. So let me try to tell you what it's like.
I guess it's sometimes with mental health, it's very difficult to communicate how it feels, isn't it? Like for me, I find that really hard. So I suffer from like anxiety, depression. I had a panic attack a couple of weeks ago. So it kind of comes and goes and you just kind of learn to manage it, right? And live with it. And I guess sometimes it's very difficult to tell the outside world what that feels like, even if you are ready to. Sometimes you're not ready to, right?
Right.
So what I wanted to ask you was, what does it feel like for you? These things, what do they feel like? Anxiety, depression, whatever the issue is in your body, in your mind, what does it feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who lives a lot in my head, I've been doing a lot of work in the past few years to kind of connect myself more with my body and how things show up in my body. And so I've been just more observant of that in the recent past. And I do think they physically, like it feels like they physically take up space just kind of by default. Like if I am just like sitting, I can kind of be like, well, it feels like my depression is like at this level, and maybe it's lower today, but I still kind of feel the presence of it. And then anxiety, of course, feels a little more activating, and kind of you feel that panicky feeling or that dread that kind of moves through your whole body. But I do think it's like, so I'm so used to it now that I can sort of immediately tell you like, oh, this is this is low and this is high today. Or I still kind of struggle sometimes with the fact that other people don't experience the world the same way. Like I can't imagine what your brain is doing if it isn't so like crowded by these two things.
What do people do when they have all the space in their mind, right? No, I get that completely get that. I guess if you've lived with this as long as you have, and it sounds like you have for a long time, that state of being almost feels normal, doesn't it? Like that's just how it is.
Right.
I also struggle with knowing when it switches. Like sometimes I'm perfectly normal and then I won't realize that I'm anxious.
Right.
And then like a couple of days down the line, oh shit, I started to feel anxious 2 days ago and I didn't really, my brain didn't clock it,
Yeah.
And then it just catches you and you're like, oh my God, how am I feeling like this? It's awful. Oh
Right.
yeah, it's the old beast, like, okay.
Yeah. That's the thing I've come to learn, just how cyclical it is. And that I think kind of helps with the lower periods now, like knowing that, okay, this is temporary. I don't know exactly how long it's going to last this time, but I've kind of come through this cycle before. Like for me, I've developed sort of in the past few years also PMDD, which is just like worsening depression, anxiety around my period. So it's like, well, at least that gives it a little more of a schedule, but
yes.
but besides that, it still tends to fluctuate. But it is, it is kind of funny to be like, okay, this week maybe don't schedule a lot.
It's so weird, isn't it? It's still such a taboo to talk about depression and anxiety in the world, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the US, the UK, whatever, we are starting to have these conversations, but it's still not commonplace. Like I always say this, if I broke my leg, I tell someone, hey, look, my leg's broken. And it's
Yeah.
not a big deal, right? It still feels, I still hesitate to say, oh, I'm having a really bad day. I'm really anxious, or I had a panic attack, or whatever. There's still that kind of, oh, we don't really say this in public.
That's what I found really interesting is just that it has, as you're saying, entered the cultural conversation a lot more. Like definitely I see like Gen Z talking very openly about their mental health and kind of even having a shorthand for a lot of therapy language. But I feel like even in talking about mental health in my work, I feel like there's a distance between like me talking about it in a sort of polished and like funny way versus like the actual experience of it is so much different and so much messier and so much maybe more frustrating to deal with if you're friends with someone with anxiety, where it's like they maybe cancel at the last minute or for whatever reason they're kind of at the whim of their own brain. And I feel like that aspect of it hasn't really been, I guess the conversation is maybe not at the full level of nuance that it could be.
I guess part of it is it's not that long ago that people were locked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And particularly women, like there's so much history about like hysteria.
Yeah.
If you can't understand why this woman's behaving like this, say, I don't know, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, you just lock her up. And I guess somewhere in our bodies or our psyche, we still carry that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of the hesitation. Saying, well, I can't really say this because what are people going to think of me? Or where am I going to end up?
Yeah. I mean, I think I still feel that kind of that judgment of women as like too emotional or irrational, where around my period, I will behave in a way that even to me, I'm sort of like, I don't know why I'm acting like this. And then it feels like it feeds into that narrative of just like, we're like erratic creatures and we don't even know what is happening to us. So it's like, why should we be trusted with our own minds? Like, I think there is a lot around women's brains that is so questioned as to like their own autonomy over them.
Yeah. Do you remember when I think in one of your sketches you talk about, or maybe in the interview, about first starting to experience these symptoms when you were in college? Do you remember what kind of started or what happened?
Yeah, I mean, my depression was maybe there from a younger age, but I think it didn't kind of reach a level where it was affecting my ability to live my life until college. And it actually first manifested as eating disorder, where I was restricting my eating. I was like running on the cross country team at school at the time. And I think I sort of started engaging in these restrictive eating behaviors as a form of control. But then it felt like it really was just kind of a mask for this depression I was struggling with. That was kind of an existential depression, but also just, feeling kind of stuck in general in my life and like as a person. And I think once I was able to name that kind of helped resolve the eating behaviors. But there was some relief in, I think, being able to name it, because I think for so long I had just sort of thought it was this thing that just lived in me that I didn't really know how to make sense of.
I experience panic attacks and sometimes severe anxiety. When it happens, it's like a million thoughts falling over each other. Boom, boom, boom in my mind until I'm exhausted. My body becomes a combination of fizzing, popping adrenaline and also the inability to move. My mind goes into a sort of lockdown. I can try and move, but I won't go very far. Everything slows down. I function at the most basic level. Sleeping, eating, watching TV. I find myself unable to do all the things that give me joy. My work, my writing, my workshops, even my podcast. I then exist in a limbo where every step and every move feels like walking through jelly, or like trudging through a field of heavy mulch, all of it sticking to my legs. Usually, it's a waiting game. I have to slow down, wait for this phase to pass. But these days, the jelly phases, as I call them, are getting shorter, and I'm getting quicker at coming out of them. And when I do come out of them, it's like the world waits for me, fresh and new and shining. I guess the other aspect of it is, in our culture, in South Asian culture, we just don't talk about mental health,
Yeah.
right? It just doesn't exist as a concept. And that feels like it's adding another layer of difficulty, right? Where we're taught to always have this mask on. Anybody asks you how you are, you're fine.
Right.
And especially like aunties, uncles visiting, you're putting on a front and everything is good.
Yeah.
Even within families, if someone's struggling, the parents will never tell anyone outside that person's struggling, their kids. It's just, you've got to put up this front. You've got to keep this mask on of everything's perfect.
Right.
And I still see this among South Asian friends here in the UK.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? Like, where do you think it comes from? What do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think at some point I thought maybe it was part of there, with Asian Americans, sometimes there's the model minority myth where, you want to be seen as not a problem and like you're easy to deal with and you're not maybe causing any tension in your community. So I thought maybe some of it came from a place of that, of just keeping up appearances and kind of staying under the radar in terms of any drama or stress. But I think you're right. I think it even comes from just some cultural norms around, I don't know if it's like just the collectivist idea of like the group is more important than any individual problem. But I think there is something also to just family, like the family as a unit is maybe more important than any like individual struggle within it.
Yes.
Like you have to seem like a strong front to everyone else, and like any conflict that's happening below the surface like does not need to be shown to other people.
I've always wondered if it's like a survival thing as well. When you're operating in survival mode, you cannot let anybody else see the weakness or the kind of the chink in the armor.
Right.
That's the mode of functioning.
Right.
Because to admit vulnerability is to make yourself weaker, isn't it, in front of someone else?
Yeah. No, that's a great way of looking at it. Because I know, like, especially in my family, like my mom also struggles with anxiety and depression. I think has been more open about her own mental health journey. And it's really my dad who's kind of the one has kind of the most doubts about like, mental illness and like seeing a therapist. And he just like I think he just feels like what you're saying, where it's like, if you're having a problem, you kind of suck it up and keep moving. Like you're not showing your weakness. Like, how is that going to help you in any way?
No, I've had friends, South Asian friends, say all sorts of things. I had one friend say to me that when I was talking to her about, I have this, anxiety and depression, she's like, that's nothing. Just pray to the God, and you'll be fine. And I'm like, what if it were that easy? I would be in the temple every day, right?
Right. I know. Sometimes I am like, whenever I get advice like that, I am like, wow, if that like works for you, I really I wish I had that brain where you could just, do the thing and check off the problem.
Yeah. Have you had any like weird advice like this?
I don't know if I've gotten that one, but I've gotten, like, did you try taking a walk, or like, are you drinking enough water? And, things like just very general self-care. And I'm like, sure, I think there are days where I could have drank more water, but I don't think that's
going
the
to
only
manage
thing.
my anxiety. Drinking like 20 pints of water
Yeah.
isn't going to fix it. Hey, I wanted to pause this episode for a minute to share something that I'm really excited about. Podcasting changed my life. I went from typing into Google, "What is a podcast?" Yes, I did that. To creating the multi-award-winning Masala podcast. And now I'd like to share some of my knowledge with you. I'm starting podcasting masterclasses on my website, and one of them's been created especially for women podcasters. Just go to my website, soulsutras.co.uk, and look under courses, or email me at podcasting@soulsutras.co.uk, and I'll share details with you. I look forward to helping you on your podcasting journey.
Hi, मैं हूँ कबीर.
और मैं हूँ योगी.
Yes, we are two guys. And yes, we are in love.
इंडिया में गे होना और एक गे कपल होना क्या होता है? Together we will try and decode that अपनी देसी भाषा में.
With generous helpings of Desi style Ashiki, only in our podcast Shuddh Desi Gay, a Spotify original, produced by RM Word Pictures.
New episodes out every Monday.
I was watching the documentary this morning, Laughing Matters, which is all about comedy and mental health, comedians and mental health, and features amazing comedians like Sarah Silverman, Rachel Bloom, and of course you. And I loved it. And I thought it was so real and also so uplifting.
Yeah.
It talks about like quite dark, it's depression and, comedy and how comedians are and how they deal with it. But ultimately, it was absolutely uplifting. How did you get involved in it?
I believe that documentary, I'm not sure if the timeline was just a coincidence, but I do remember like a comedian had recently passed away after taking their own life. And I think this documentary was sort of out of the wake of that event, of just like, we should be having more conversations about this, and especially like in the artistic community. And so I think I was brought in that way. Just, they had been familiar with some of the material I had done around my own anxiety and depression. But I do think, I'm always happy to kind of help shed a light on these things, because I think for me at this point, I'm like very open in talking about it. And I want everyone to be able to have that freedom.
Do you think life as a comedian kind of makes things harder if you suffer from depression and anxiety? I was just thinking about this. It's like you get up in front of people and you're telling all these jokes and everybody laughs and tells you how amazing you are. And then it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And you don't know when the next time that is. So you're going from this lots of people, lots of adulation to nothing. I wonder if that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's the worst career choice for like, without question. I'm like, what is the most stressful environment to put someone with anxiety and depression in? How about something where you're constantly subjected to just random feedback and you just want like approval, and then if you don't get it, you're forced to admit that it was something about you that they didn't like, or something about the way you see the world. So it is a little bit of a masochistic career choice, I think, as someone with my type of brain. But then it's like strange that so many comedians do deal with anxiety and depression. And I think some of it to me feels like having this kind of brain that's kind of just hyper vigilant and constantly kind of questioning things does feel like the flip side of the artistic brain, where you're just like constantly asking like, why does the world work this way? Like that's weird that people do that in this situation. But then like it's sort of the flip side of the darkness, I think.
Yeah. And also, I guess, when you have the ability to make people laugh, right, which is what you do as a comedian, you become immediately likable, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And also you bring people's defenses down, don't you?
Right.
And I'm sure that helps if your kind of brain is that way wired. You're like constantly worrying or constantly kind of thinking about things or overthinking it.
Right.
Then this is what comedy does. So I can absolutely see why so many comedians who might have these issues have become comedians.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Totally. And I think also for me, I still have a lot of social anxiety, and it feels kind of more manageable to be like, here are my prepared thoughts in a very like controlled, scheduled environment. And then afterwards I can retreat, like it feels more like I have more autonomy over that than like a conversation at a party or something.
Yeah. Because you're managing it.
Yeah.
True. I get that. One of the comedians, I don't remember who it was, on that documentary, spoke about loneliness as a comedian and just loneliness in society. And the fact that, again, I think they were talking about the same sort of thing. You're performing in front of thousands and thousands and people are clapping and telling you
Yeah.
amazing. And then 2 days you go home and there's no one.
Right.
And there's nothing.
Right.
And he was talking about like that being really, really difficult. And the day before was the same, he said.
Yeah.
Do you find that, or as you might sound like a little bit of an introvert, so you're quite happy to kind of go and retreat and it doesn't bother you?
Yeah, I think I don't mind, being able to retreat. I think for me that's actually sometimes helpful to recharge. But I do think I relate to just how erratic it can you between, all this feedback and like attention and then suddenly nothing. Like it's very hot and cold, and it's not like today I'm going to go to work and talk to these 5 people. It's kind of just like 1,000 people today, 6 people the next day. Like,
0 the third.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're still doing the shows where it's like 15 people are not interested.
No, I get it. And for me, that's a struggle as well, because I work at home alone for myself. And sometimes I'm like doing podcasts like this, or I'm speaking at events or talking to loads of people, and you're on and you're up.
Right.
And you're like, performing in a way. And then you go home and then it's really quiet for a couple of days. So I find that switch quite difficult.
Yes.
The switching on and the switching off.
Yeah.
So I completely can understand. I guess that's true of anybody who's performing or doing something that's kind of public facing, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's such a tricky thing with a front facing career where once it becomes your job, like any other job, there are days where you don't feel like going, and it's funny when it's like a job where you're forced to engage and connect with people that sometimes you are maybe a little bit more on autopilot, and does that feel wrong on some level, where it's like you're portraying this symbol of connection, but then maybe you're not connecting to it in the same way every time.
Yeah. And then you feel a sense of like, oh my God, I should really feel more connected. So I feel quite guilty.
Right.
And then I'm adding another layer on top of it.
Because I think I constantly am also like, what a lucky career you have to get to do this at all. So to not wake up every day just being so thankful and ready to go, sometimes feels very guilt inducing or shame
like, hey, I'm not feeling on top of the world today. Shit, I really should, because I'm so lucky to do the thing I'm doing. Right. No, I completely get that. So I'm going to quote something that Rainn Wilson said on the documentary that it really resonated with me. He said, we all have these kind of fucked up things that happen to us. We can get through it and transform it and use it. And I loved that, because I feel like with a lot of creative people, comedians, writers, artists of any kind, it's actually the darkness, the anxiety, the kind of trauma that transforms into something beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't mean we all have to be like tortured artists to create art, but art always comes, good art, I genuinely believe, comes from trauma and angst and pain. Do you feel this as well?
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to see it play out in comedy at the moment, because I think there is, a wave of comedy that's very confessional and maybe even towing the line between, drama and comedy, where there are one-person shows where, they start out lighter and then it takes it to a much more serious place, or maybe the whole thing is like a little bit more somber than the usual comedy special. And it is interesting just to see the way people react, where some people say, oh, well, that's not a comedy special. Like a comedy special is just jokes. And to me, I'm kind of like, well, I think that limits it as an art form to say it can only look this one way. But I also understand the perspective of people who are like, I don't want to just, regurgitate my trauma for the stage. Like I go to the stage to forget about my trauma. So I I think it can go either way. It's just giving people
Mm.
the freedom to say, like, take your pain and make it whatever you want it to be, but it
Yeah,
doesn't have to look
yeah.
one way.
Yeah, yeah. I think you said that as well on the same documentary, that comedy is a way to transform your darkest thoughts into a form that gives them a little less power.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, for me, some days it's kind of like, I'm like, in talking about these things, did I actually give them more real estate in my brain? I don't think that, but I think, anytime you turn your life into art or like part of your work, it is like, are you giving it more credence, or are you like, adding it to people's idea about you? And what does that do to your sense of self? Like, I think I'm constantly wrestling with those kinds of questions.
I also think something you said earlier about, when you think about the rest of the world and you're like, oh my God, what do you do with a brain that isn't kind of taken over by anxiety? How is it that the rest of the world, isn't like this? I actually think that most people suffer from some form of anxiety, depression. It might not be like debilitating and you can't
Right.
function or whatever, but I think if you are human and if you live in this world,
Right.
you will suffer from those things. That's extremely natural.
Yeah.
But I think most people do not discuss it.
Yeah.
Maybe never accept it to themselves, let alone to other people. I just think comedians or artists or writers are just a little bit more open about suffering than other people are, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And along those lines, I think there is a sort of status quo way of being in society. Like, it might differ a little between, like India or the UK or the US, but I think there is like we were talking about earlier, just this idea of like, the world is hard for everyone and you get through it, and you don't need to like air your pain for everyone, because everyone's
Yes.
in some kind of pain. But yeah,
Yes.
I just think, I don't know, this idea that you never show it to anyone. Like, I don't know if that's like a capitalist thing where it's sort of like, just keep moving forward, just keep producing, or just like, yeah, kind of social keeping up appearances thing. But it does feel like there's some sort of mandate that everyone has, like, you need to, if someone asks how you're doing, you say, oh, good.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been tempted to answer differently, but I never have dared to.
Yeah.
If somebody says that usual question, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm actually feeling really shit.
Right.
And then,
Right.
But I've never really done that.
I know. I feel like maybe I feel like I've had that sometimes with other comedians, where someone will come in with a sort of distinctly off energy or something, where they are going through something and they won't try to hide it. And you still kind of see the panic in everyone else's faces of like, what do we do? Why did they break the code? Like, what's going on? And I also thought it was interesting during the pandemic, where it sort of became a shorthand where everyone's like, how are you doing? And you don't have to say good, because obviously we're all really sad.
Yeah.
But even that became a sort of like pat way of handling all of it,
Yes. I'm not sure if is it a capitalist thing, I think, to deny that? Or is it, I'm thinking of like India, in growing up in India, living in India. It wasn't even a concept. Like, nobody I knew discussed mental health issues. Like, even during some of the hardest times in my life, like during my mom's death, and I was just in a really bad place. There was no room to talk about it. There were no words. There was no language.
Right.
It's just completely not included. So much so that an Indian friend once said to me that Indians don't get mental health issues. We just don't. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think that level of just like refusal to engage is like, like, denial can be a powerful thing. Like, I think some people really, I even think my dad on some level is just like, I don't believe in depression. Like, I don't know what that is. But yeah, I think the brain is a powerful thing. And yeah, like you're saying, I think people are wrestling with these things, but you can sometimes convince yourself, you're not, if you really don't want to have to excavate any of those layers.
Or they'll say stuff like, oh, I just like to keep busy. Every time I start to feel something, I'll just keep busy.
Yeah.
And we know that that's a classic kind of
Right,
denial
right,
thing, isn't
right.
it? It's like, okay, let me just get really, really busy so I don't have to feel this feeling that's extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
But then it's like that, then they can't ever stop. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And again, look, I always think this thing about the way we see people who are busy and together and have it together,
Mhm.
let's put quote unquote. And then on the other side, there's people who suffer from anxiety and depression and haven't got it together. I'm doing air quotes, it's a
Right.
podcast, but where one is perceived as, oh my God, there's something wrong with them. And the other lot are perceived as good functioning human beings.
Yeah. I mean,
And actually, that's not true.
right. And I'll
right?
notice that impulse even in myself where I'll be like, oh, well, at least she's the productive kind of depressive where she still wrote a book while she was like, yeah, maybe she had a hard time, but she has a book and I had a hard time and I have no book. You know, like there's still that weird competitiveness. And that maybe probably is a
Yes.
capitalist impulse
Yeah.
to be like, well, what did you
Yes.
produce from your pain?
Yes, so true. It wasn't enough that I just lay in bed and just like, watched shitty movies for a week. Like, what did I do with it?
Right.
How did I channel my pain into this beautiful creative product?
Right.
Right.
And I think
That's
real,
hilarious.
I think like the real messiness of mental illness is like there isn't always like a nice, shiny product
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Yeah. Or a nice Instagram quote you can put on
Right.
it and make yourself feel better, right?
Right.
It doesn't exist. What's it been for other people who kind of respond to this comedy that you do, specifically around mental health or any of the other stuff? Have other people come up to you and said how it has it helped them in any way?
Yeah, I'll still get messages from people who will just be like, I listened to your album or like I watched your special where you talked about this and it made me feel like less alone. And yeah, it means so much to me because I think I kind of assume now there's so much content and there's so many people freely talking about everything that to kind of still reach out and connect with someone, like it feels very kind of humbling to know that you can still have that impact on someone just by sharing your own experience.
Absolutely. And I guess when someone sees you're a successful comedian, you're on these amazing shows, and you're still sitting there talking about, I feel like this, or this, I couldn't get out of bed, or whatever it might be. I guess it normalizes it for a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't think of it as normal.
Yeah.
And we don't see many brown women saying these things. I don't know many who kind of openly talk about it because I still believe like in our culture, it's perceived as a weakness somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure it helps a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think I notice now just like in doing shows, like local comedy shows, I have noticed like a lot more young South Asian women who are pretty openly talking about, like their mental illness or their sexuality. And so I am kind of excited to see that the next generation maybe is kind of further ahead in a lot of that. And that is very different from when I started. So that's kind of cool to see the needle moving in that way.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've helped it move a little bit. I am sure of that.
It's a very mixed message when someone's like, I've been watching you since middle school and I'm so inspired. You're like, thank you, but also, ouch.
What have you got coming up, Aparna, in terms of work and shows?
Yeah, funnily enough, I mentioned writing a book. I have a book coming out. It took me a very long time to write, but it's a book of essays, and the overarching theme is imposter syndrome and how I've sort of wrestled with it in pretty much every area of my life. Yeah, so that is coming out in September.
Fantastic. What's it called?
It's called Unreliable Narrator.
I like that. What would you say Aparna, 5 years old, was sitting here with us today, right? What would you say to her?
I think I would say that, like, I realize the world seems like a very scary place and it's okay to feel scared and you still belong here. And it's okay to also just tell people you're scared because there isn't shame in that or any, like, it doesn't make you any less of a person to know that maybe you approach the world in a more cautious way than the next person.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Finally, have you got any words for listeners of Masala podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to what we were saying just about like having the freedom to express your own struggle, but then you also do not have to monetize your struggle or like make sure your struggle gets enough likes. Like that isn't the point of trying to be a full person. Like I think sometimes on the internet especially, everyone is like trying to be authentic, and I think even when you're trying to be three-dimensional on the internet, you still can be flattened in a way. So it's important to kind of also have these conversations in person with people you love, and
and not feel the pressure to monetize everything, I guess.
Yes.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you, Aparna, for sitting with me, chatting with me, being so open about, your thoughts and your own struggles and your journey. It's been an absolutely wonderful conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the thoughtful questions. It's been lovely.
Thank you for listening to Masala Podcast. Masala Podcast is part of my platform Soul Sutras, dedicated to celebrating and supporting South Asian women. This is a space for all of us bad betis who don't do as we're told. This is where we get to celebrate our culture our way and be exactly who we want to be. I'd love to hear from you. Get in touch via email at soulsutras.co.uk or my website soulsutras.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. Just look for Soul Sutras. Masala Podcast was created and presented by me, Sangeeta Pillai, produced by Anushka Tate, opening music by Sunny Robertson.
Besharam, Badtameez, Gandhi, Hi, Bad Beti.
I wanted to share another show that I love called Miha Podcast. It's an award-winning podcast about the stories of daughters of immigrants from all over the world. The podcast features immigration stories of different families and how immigration changes lives. Their new season, Miha on the Mic, is great. I was on one of their episodes and I really enjoyed it. If you'd like to listen to Miha Podcast, it's available on all podcasting platforms.